call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Blunier.
Here.
Leach.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Mennel.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Parrott.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Ask you to join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public hearings tonight, but we do have a couple special reports, and I'll ask Trustee Leach to do that for us.
Okay, I think you've all received the emails that I've received from Craig. I'm not sure I understood everything that he was trying to tell us, but the gist of it is, over the past few days, he sent us emails concerning the issue of the cost of natural gas that the village purchases for the homes and businesses within Morton. While the usage of natural gas has increased dramatically over the last several days because of the frigid temperatures, the bigger issue has been with the supplier's prices rising to heights not seen before in the marketplace. Based on the added cost of gas supplies used by the residences and businesses, we estimate the gas bills that will be sent out for this time period to be about 5 times higher than the same time last year. You have to remember we charge for water, sewer, stormwater, and gas. Those other 3 are not affected. It's just the gas portion of the bill, and that's what we would expect to be about 5 times higher. The next 2 days should help us find out if it's going to be over, if the temperature starts to moderate more, but we still expect cold temperatures today and tomorrow. Craig has told me that we buy tomorrow, today, so it'll be interesting to see if the temperatures moderate on Thursday to see how things go. Well, I could try to speculate what has happened in the marketplace. I can assure you that there is no windfall profit to the village because of these extremely high prices. The village portion of your gas bill is based on the quantity of gas used and not the cost of the gas. So we charge for the unit. Is it cubic feet we charge by or therms?
Therms.
Okay, so it's based on the therms that you use is what we charge for the village's portion. So while the gas portion may dramatically change, we are not changing what we charge for. I think there's one small item, it's what we consider gas losses, that we use a percentage, but it's an extremely small percent. Is it 0.2%?
Between that and transportation, I mean, it adds up. If our profit's 20 cents, it's about 3 cents is what that is.
All right, so as you look at it, we will not gain financially because of the cost of gas going up so high. The Village of Morton is the largest public utility of natural gas in the state of Illinois, but still we are small when compared to other providers of natural gas in other areas of the state and around the country. We contract for the amount of gas each year to provide a stable cost of gas to the whole village, but we don't know exactly how much to plan for each month. But if I remember, it's 1.1 M therms or million therms, right?
Million MCFs.
Okay, that's cubic feet. I knew there was cubic feet somewhere. So with that, we buy that, and then on any month that we need to go out and buy more, we hit the spot market or the marketplace or whatever. And in past years, this hasn't been a problem. And when I say past years, I'm saying the past 50, 60 years, this hasn't been a problem. And this issue has never happened before. So you might ask, what has taken place? First off, we're having to buy more gas because February has been colder than normal. This is an unusual February for us. Normally these cold periods would happen in January, but anyway, this is a cold month and we're having to buy on the spot market now. What things have happened? Well, we have a frigid cold going all the way down to southern Texas. that extrapolates out to there's more demand because there's more people needing to heat their homes than would normally happen, especially in February. So with that, there are more people needing to buy gas, but there might have been what we would consider a squeeze on gas. Suppliers saying they weren't able to, or were afraid they wouldn't be able to pump in as much gas as was being required by the pipeline, by the users, the end users. Why is that? Well, they said storms have affected their capacity. Electric power plants have been affected by this extreme cold, and it just may be speculation too. I'm not sure. While I could speculate all day on what the actual causes are at this stage, those are the ones that we've been told about. So what has it done? It's been the perfect storm. We've had high demand at a time where there's been a constriction of gas being able to be pumped into the pipeline. And of course, we all know the law of supply and demand causes prices to go up when the supply goes down. The prices go up, supply goes down. That has hit in February and has hit extremely hard at this point in time. We have done a lot of things as a village to try to tell the high users of gas, asking them if they could curtail some of their use either by lowering temperatures or just informing them of what is happening. Can they adjust their production rates accordingly? Some can, some can't, but we have tried to tell them what the issues are as far as the amount of gas and also what the cost of gas is going to be. No one is happy about it, especially us, because we have to answer those questions. But from my perspective, I just want to remind you, we will receive no windfall profit because of this issue. And then I don't know if the mayor would like to open it up for any discussion or questions now, or if you want to wait till later.
Well, if anybody has any questions or additional comments?
Curious, seemingly this winter has been warmer than normal to this point. The amount that we are contracted for November, December, January that we don't use as much, is that help?
Not really. Basically, we nominate gas. We're buying it off the market monthly. So first of the month, we're buying for the month. And that's based on that usage, which right now is 6,700 therms. Our contract's 10,000. So what we're really getting hit with is anything above that.
Yeah.
We do have storage that we're able to manipulate some, but we're buying first of the month. And then that incremental due to cold and all that, then we're buying a day ahead, like Trustee Leach mentioned. That's where we're getting really hit hard. So right now, even with citizens who I wrote on Facebook, obviously stay warm, but anything anyone can do to keep that down, because anything over the 10,000 is potential even penalties, which unfortunately are exponential to the tune of 5 times the already bloated. We're talking from $3 to $300 potentially. I mean, these are obscene numbers that have never been seen. From Ron Reagan from Utility Gas Management, he's like, I've never seen this in my career. And a lot of our attitudes gone from, scared, worried, to now it's more frustrating, anger. It's not right, but anyway.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay. The next thing, I'm just going to go, and then you won't have to listen to me anymore. I had on the agenda for the extension of the ES grant program, and the Illinois DCEO has been exploring the option of allowing the village to reopen the ES grant program, but we have not received the final rules that we and local businesses would need to follow. If you remember, we were allotted about a total of $324,000. We've given out about $100,800, so there's still about $223,000, $224,000 left. They contacted us about handing that out, and so, but they haven't fixed any particular rules yet. We will continue to discuss this opportunity with the DCEO, and if and when the rules have been finalized, we will keep the village board and local businesses informed if we will be able to allow those local businesses to apply for grants who did not apply this past December. The DCEO has stated that they would probably create an extended period to allow for businesses to apply, and we may make changes to our grant program to include most, if not all, businesses within the village that meet the other guidelines. And the other guidelines, we set a maximum sales in a year for 2019 of $1 million, less than 50 full-time equivalent employees. And then there were, if they had a big grant, if they applied for a big grant and received it, they were disqualified as well. They could have applied for and received PPP money, but they had to show that it wasn't, the two funds weren't, or the two amounts, the amount they got through PPP and what we granted them weren't being used for the same expense, okay? We may also increase the allowable grant amount from the previous $10,000. We set our grant limit at $10,000 to maybe something as high as $15,000 or $20,000. Eligible expenses would still be for the time period of March 1 through December 31, 2020. So this does not include any 2021 expenses. It's just for those 9 months last year. Those expenses would probably still remain the same as before, which were utility bills, things like electricity, gas, water, sewer, telephone, and internet, plus rent, mortgage, or lease payments. We have the issue of, do we grant money to people who might have been eligible if we'd made the amount higher last year than the 10 who applied and showed, that they had $20,000 worth of expenses, but our limit was 10. Do we go ahead and include the other 10? So what we have to do is maybe set a deadline, and I'm just going to set a deadline of April 30th for all applications to be turned in. That gives us the month of May to review them, request any additional documentation that may be required to prove their expenses, and then have the grants ready to be brought before the board, say the first meeting in June, to make a decision. But if we get, what if we get applications that exceed the $224,000? What do we do? Okay, so I guess my thought is I would assume we would ratio them out so that nobody gets left out, but we don't want to give somebody 20 and somebody else who maybe applied for 20 and only gets 10. So I think we would have to figure out a way to ratio those out, including the ones who've already received something, okay? Also, last year, because we took the applications in December, they really couldn't apply for their December expenses because they hadn't received the bills yet. So even some of those who applied last year in December, they should still be allowed to apply for their December charges, okay? So we would still open that up. We'd make sure that they're aware of that and they can apply for that as well, okay? Then I'd also like to remind you that we gave out 13 grants totaling over $100,800. We approved those at our December 29th meeting. And so with this, we know, I wasn't there, but I know Julie handed checks to people who were extremely appreciative of receiving the money, including, I don't know, I've heard the story. I don't want to start, but they started crying when Julie was giving them the check. They were just so appreciative. They had a tough year. They didn't know how they were going to pay bills. They were just trying to figure out how they're going to be able to write checks. And then they got told that they were getting a grant from the village, and just so appreciative of it. So with that, we know that there are people who have been hurt by what happened last year. And the state still has this money. It's not money that they generated. It's money that Congress provided to them. And so they've come back and said, can you hand out the other $224,000? So they'd really like us to do that. So we're going to have to look at ways that we can expand it. We would expand it by including, say, all businesses, and maybe expand it by increasing the upper limit. So with that, any questions on that?
Do we turn in another kind of the format or the guidelines like we did last time, where we kind of rewrite those guidelines and we turn it back into them and then they approve it and okay.
I'm shaking my head in the affirmative that I assume that's what they're going to ask us to do, because they can't tell us to go on the same format that we did before because
Because,
it ended. All right,
Right.
so we have to open this up. So I'm assuming that they're going to give us the opportunity to make some changes, which would include the types of businesses. Instead of restricting it to the 7 or 8 styles of business, maybe open it up to everybody. But also in that, we put in there that we wanted to be able to give out a grant up to $10,000. So in that, we would then increase that amount, I'm sure, as well.
good. That's great.
One other thing to note is that we've already been reimbursed by the state
Right.
for the first 100,000, which was actually very surprising that they quickly turned it
Right.
around. So we got that money 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So,
Wonderful.
if we do this again, I'm not as fearful that we'll be holding on for 6 months waiting for the money, so.
Yeah, I was afraid that the state was saying, okay, well, we'll let you go till June 30th, but we're going to hold all the money till then.
Yeah.
They've paid us, so we don't have to worry about that.
I had a couple businesses that sounded interested. It was came to be too late, unfortunately, and a couple of different concerns that I was hearing was the thoughts they didn't think that they would be able to apply because they've already received certain types of grant monies that were out there, and then also some were confused about the differences between PPP and other, whether they had to pay, they would have an obligation to pay this back. I guess. I think the obvious one, obviously, is it's not a loan. This is a grant. This is not something that they are know to be paid. They don't have to pay back, which is awesome. But the other thing is I guess the grants. There's only about 5 or 6 businesses that received the large grant. I forget the name. We call it the big grant.
Yeah, business interruption grant, so
There you
that's
go.
how it gets called, the big grant. There were probably in total 20
Okay,
in the city of Morton that got it.
and
So-
those businesses would not be able to.
Right. It's the same pot of money, so you can't get 2 grants from the same pot of money from the federal government. The other thing to remember is, like Trustee Leach said, they can't duplicate. You can't get reimbursed for the same expenses that you've already gotten PPP money for. But if there were other business sustainability grants, there were other grants that the state did earlier that people could continue, could apply for this and be eligible. It's just that last big grant amount that they would not be eligible to receive. Even though we had one girl who the big grant was smaller than the amount of money we were going to give her, and so we were able to work with the state, and she returned the money that the state was giving her for the big grant, and then was able to get the larger check from us. So, but that's probably too late down the road for most of them because they've already probably gotten the money and spent it. So,
I guess this question would be either Julie or Steve. Is there any of the businesses commented on the ease of the application process?
no, most of them thought that it was a lot of work because you have to verify every expense that you're applying for. You have to verify your income. You had to verify that you paid your taxes, and you had to provide your income tax returns. And I think part of the detriment that we had in December was the short turnaround. There were so many of them that they just didn't have time to apply in that small window that we had. So stretching this out, the state says we could do this through June 30th, so we'll be able to stretch it out so that people, but as Trustee Leach alluded to, we will have a deadline, and we're not going to process anything until we get to that deadline so that we can look to see how many grants we get and how much money we could allot to each applicant if they're eligible.
And I think the businesses need to know it's very confidential. The only 2 people that looked at that paperwork was Trustee Leach and the administrator. I never looked at it. Those 2 looked at it, made sure it was correct, because when we turn it into the state and we've given them the money, if everything isn't correct, the state won't reimburse us for that money. So if we make a mistake on our end of $10,000, the state's not going to reinvest it. And I wanted the businesses to know all that detailed information. Only 2 people see it. They have accounting talents, and that stays right there. So the rest of us don't need to know.
Right.
We just need to know it qualified. So we
There's
have
a-
checks and balances, so we're trying not to miss anything.
Right. There is the thing, we had to make sure that no business that we might approve owed the state any money for either income tax or sales tax. So those were things that we might have had to request. We have to receive proof that, one, they've remitted the report, and two, submitted the money, those types of things. And so those were two things. I think the state was being, we don't want to give somebody money who owes us money. And so we had to make sure of that. And then just the other expenses. We didn't cover any of those taxes, all right? But we had to make sure they were paid. The other things, we had to have proof of, all the utility bills for each of those utilities as well. And then either give us a copy of your lease agreement, a rent agreement, or show us your rent checks, type thing. So those, and that's for each month that you were applying. So, there was a lot of information and paperwork you had to look through.
The only question that I still have hanging out there from a couple people was the taxability of this grant. I referred them back to their tax accountants.
Yeah.
I had a tax accountant call me and I said, you're gonna have to research it. We issued 1099s on all of them because, that's the thing we had to do. So I am assuming it's taxable to them, but with it being federal money, who knows whether it really is or not, but.
We're not their accountant, so.
Yeah. I might be a CPA, but I don't know those rules anymore, so.
And I do want to thank those two for doing it, because it was days of work and a lot of paperwork, because some of them didn't have it all and you had to follow up to get it. So it's a lot of work to take it on, but if we can dish out a couple $100,000 to our local businesses, let's get her done.
Okay,
Okay.
that's all I have.
right, thank you. The consent agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes, the regular meeting February 1st, 2021, and the approval of the bills. If we could have a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any questions, concerns? Call the roll.
Blunier,
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Menold,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I have one item tonight. It's a resolution 23-21, a resolution authorizing the execution of a collective bargaining agreement between the Village of Morton and their International Association of Firefighters, Local 4952, and the paramedics. I could have a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any comments, questions? If none, call the roll.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Menold,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Blunier.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's all I have. Village Clerk,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Village Administrator,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Chief of Police,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Director of Fire and Emergencies isn't here, Director of Public Works.
One item tonight, Your Honor. I'd like to ask for acceptance of proposal through Sourcewell and from Altorfer Incorporated for a 2021 CAT 289, basically skid steer in the amount of $36,732. This includes a trade of the one we purchased 3 years ago that had a guaranteed buyback of $40,000.
If we could have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, one question, I guess, in particular. Is it customary typically where we would do a competitive bid against other Caterpillar dealerships?
I would say not against Caterpillar dealerships, but we could do a competitive bid against other, Morton, other types of skid steers, other brands.
Any reason in particular, I guess, why we did it this time?
I'm going under the assumption we have one wheel loader, 4 backhoes, and a skid steer. From you guys, at least the majority, from previous discussion we had when we purchased a John Deere, that if we used a cooperative like Sourcewell to buy Caterpillar. Caterpillar's big in this town, and that was the direction I was given at that time. So that would be for you guys to give me the direction of whether you want to bid or purchase a Cat.
With Caterpillar, I guess I guess the thought process, the money, I guess, more or less we're purchasing from is Alto versus an East Peoria company. Is there any reason, I guess, why if the decision was we all want to be pro cat and we just love cat and that's where we're going to buy our tractors from, why we shouldn't do multiple Caterpillar dealerships?
I can
Maybe get
answer that.
Yeah.
I used to deal with cooperative contracts, and the cooperative contracts, they provide a contract that's a competitive bid that represents all Caterpillar dealers. So whether you want to buy from Altorfer because you like them, or you want to buy from another cat dealer from another state, this is a national contract, so it's the best price that they can do. And Deere and Case and Komatsu will be on that probably. I'm not up on it right now, but
Sure.
if they are, they may be a little more or a little less, probably a little less because cat's pricey, but cat has the best resale value and they are local, so we try to support the local businesses. But I hope that answers the question, that you can go to any cat dealer you want, but it'll be the same price because it's the cat contract.
I'm not partial to cat. I bought a John Deere, just to be clear. But I will add some of the discussion that was had previously. I know with the mayor, I will say, even on the gas thing, the irony is they are the largest gas customer in the village also. So I think some of that played into, at least for these 6 pieces of equipment, to just go through Caterpillar as long as there's a cooperative purchasing to do that.
Off the top of your head, do you have, I guess, idea of what the price difference would be between whether it's an international harvester or
I mean, I think you could get a cheaper
New
skid steer
Holland
for
or-
sure. I think John Deere at Morton, Ken Hofer, great guy. They would be competitive. They've been competitive before. See, I'm not here to say whether if you do a competitive bid, then sometimes they want their machine in Morton, just like the car dealers. So they would be competitive for sure.
and save some money, possibly?
Sure, for sure.
What would the effect on the buyback be?
These are buybacks, so basically, when my John Deere skids or backhoe comes up in a couple of years, that's a guaranteed buyback, which was very nice. So basically, Cat would buy that back for $40,000 after 3 years. A lot of times we'll get a trade from John Deere that would, if that's who got it. But it's a guaranteed buyback. They'll take it back. If we don't buy another skid steer, they'll buy it back for $40,000. So that would always play into the bid too, is trying to get that guaranteed buyback and weigh that into the equation too.
And they usually all have all this equipment sold when they get it back because it's always in such good shape, so.
I will say our mechanic, I've worked with him, Mike, that was a mechanic, Mike Ingold, for 25 years. I would say our biggest partial is the Kenworth. Those guys like, if we get one of the trucks that are out tonight, they like consistency. When your mechanic's working on a machine, they do like that. I will say that. I can't say with the backhoe that that's the case, but sometimes consistency is a good thing, especially in -2 degrees when you're working on a piece of equipment. They know it like the back of their hand. So our larger tandem trucks for $200,000, I'd probably be begging you to let me buy a Kenworth. With all due respect to the other dealers, I think as long as we got cooperatives to get the price at least competitive, there are things that weigh in than just cost, especially when you see things happening like tonight. So those are other important things to, I think, play into, where price isn't everything in public works world, if that makes sense.
The other tractors we have include John Deere. What else?
I have three Cat backhoes, pretty much same. One John Deere. We have a Cat wheel loader, and then the Cat skid steer.
Have you had a problem getting the John Deere serviced?
I have no issues with John Deere or Morton. A great company. I have no issue with them.
I guess what I would venture to say, I just feel that I can maybe pick and choose winners and losers. In the world we're dealing with tax dollars, I think it's best to put out a competitive bid, whether it's with vehicles, whether it's with tractors.
And I'm willing to do that. I think that's a discussion similar to the police ones for you. I take direction from you guys. So there's 7 of you. If you told me to bid it out, I'll go bid it out. But that's a discussion that I need from you guys in order to do that.
I guess the other thing I put out there one more time is Topher is an East Peoria company. It's not a Morton company. It really is Caterpillar. There is a portion of their business is here at Morton.
I
But
can
they-
assure you at the last, whether it's Althoff or not, I can assure you, and I think the mayor can attest, that Caterpillar people contact us after we buy a John Deere. It's not Althoff, it's Caterpillar. And it's very high up people that live in Morton.
I had their top lawyer in
They
my office.
expect, yes.
They
Henry
expect
Vickery's
Morton
another one in
to
Morton.
buy
They expect
Caterpillar with Caterpillar World's Part headquarters, and Craig had to call Caterpillar today to tell them their bill could be 5 times higher. I want to thank him. He made that call. I didn't have to. So I have.
And thanks to Caterpillar they did curtail some of their business, not to
Yes.
get off tangent. We appreciate the work that they've done, especially during this.
But
But
there's a
yeah,
lot of-
I can assure you again, I'm taking direction from you guys. I have no issue bidding stuff, but they would like to see.
There was a
cat
lot of
equipment
heat
in
when
here,
we bought a John Deere.
whether it's from Althoff
From the
or not.
retired people, the employed people, Caterpillar.
You know, that aside, it's a national contract.
Yeah.
If you buy this skid steer, this model, anywhere in the United States, it's the same price. Secondly, if I recall, the conversation was, we're gonna look at value more than price. So what is the initial cost and what is the trade-in and what does it cost us to own it? And that's when we decided Caterpillar. It is nice to support Caterpillar, and I'd like to as well, but I would like to say it didn't have any influence on our conversation and the choice we made. It was about value. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know it's a little bit more expensive probably than the Deere was, and we want to support probably the Deere dealer as much as we want to do Caterpillar, but I think we came up with the value itself was better. And so,
And I think part of
Now-
that value was the other pieces that connected to that, that did things.
Now, Rod, I've worked with you or Trustee Blunier on when it was in JPA and some of those, but Sourcewell. So when I'm dealing with Sourcewell and I have questions, I'm dealing with Caterpillar. There's a Sourcewell Caterpillar rep in Peoria. I think it's Patty Redpath is her name, I believe that's. So I'm still dealing with Caterpillar. I know it's coming from Althoff, but I'm still dealing with Caterpillar.
the other thing I failed to mention is the bidding process can get quite expensive, right? You can spend a lot of time
It
with
can
that.
be a very cumbersome process.
And one of the nice things about a national contract for not only police cars, but also tractors, et cetera, is that the bidding process has been satisfied. That's the bottom price. When you compare specs to, end loader specs to skid steers, whatever you're buying, that's the end price. So you have to determine what's it gonna cost you to buy it, what's it gonna cost you to own it, and then what is it gonna cost you to trade it in, and what will you end up with. We determined, I think as a group, we determined that Caterpillar was the best value at that time. Now, that could change because manufacturers become competitive. I don't know if that was thought of in this particular process, but it was last time.
Another question I would have is how many different, other than a bucket, how many different attachments do you have to that machine that you will keep? And are they universal? Do they attach to a Deere the same as they do a cat?
I'm not sure on the skid steer 100%, but the backhoe, yeah, we had to work on that a little bit, but they're usually able to accommodate fairly easy. Wheel loader was a big one to make sure they had that. Of course, we got cat, but yeah, there's quite a few attachments, and we go through that to make sure. So that could be an issue for sure. That's a good point.
So it's an easy transition from one.
Easy transition, yeah.
It's the same model from 18 to the new one, so it should
It's the same model.
should fit.
For the skid steer, there's a lot of attachments.
We probably got 5 or 6, but then you can rent things too. Yeah. So, yeah, broom should have a mill here. Obviously buckets, augers we rent. We rent basically stump grinders. We'll rent those from Althoff. So that's a good point too. Usually Althoff is one that readily supplies some of the things we do rent as far as attachments if we need.
If you'd rent for a John Deere, where'd you rent for parts on a John Deere?
Probably Martin. Which, like I said, I have nothing bad to say about Martin and Goodfield. Excellent. I have nothing bad to say about them. So, and they do provide us on the gas side Vermeer's over there. Vermeer's next to Martin, so Vermeer provides our drill rigs, trenchers, those things too. So.
All right, well, good discussion. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Let's call the vote.
Lehman,
No.
Mennel,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Blunier,
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Anything else, Craig?
That's all I have tonight.
Thanks for your work today on the gas. Zoning and code enforcement?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you, Brad. Village trustees, anything tonight?
Can I just say one last thing about the
Go ahead.
EAS program? I forgot to emphasize it. We're not taking applications yet. It's not open yet. We don't have the final rules. So please don't anybody apply or call yet. We will let you know, though.
Thank you. We need no closed sessions tonight, so if we could have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion. We are adjourned.